So something I wanted to talk about really quickly before I signed off was something that I saw earlier today on Twitter, and that was the Reading Rush group having a book club, and that book club was reading Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid, which is a book by a Black author, and it's a book about racism and privilege and all of that. And a lot of people didn't know that that book club was happening, myself included. There wasn't a lot of publicity for it. Um, and then the owners of the Reading Rush were to do a Q&A sort of, or a conversation video live about the book with the book club, but they didn't finish the book, and they kind of laughed about it, about not finishing it, and then just did a Q&A, not on the book. And a lot of people took offense for that, rightfully so, and called them out. And then they issued an apology that came off as that they weren't actually taking the responsibility for it. And I looked on the Instagram, I didn't see anything about it, so I only saw it on Twitter. But it's whether you have good intentions or not, that's not where it leads to. What it leads to is, these are the words I put out into the world, and this is how a group of people took those words. And it doesn't matter if your intentions are good if what you say or what you do is hurting someone or a group of people, because then you're not really learning or growing from it, and you're not, it's more of defending yourself. I mean, do I really think that it was like ill-intended to do what they did, or have their apology not be good enough? No, but I don't really know. I don't know these people in real life, but I don't think it was. But it doesn't matter, because you might not see it as that, but that's what it came off as. And maybe that's something that we really need to internalize and think about. Our words have weight, our actions have weight. We're responsible for everything we put out into the world. I might say something and not think of it being that way, or not mean it to be that, but it was it, and it hurt people, and I need to take responsibility for what I said. Yes, I can say, I never meant to hurt you. It wasn't my intention. I meant it to be this way. It came out completely wrong. But I still have to own up to what I did and what I said. And that's the only way we grow and learn. We need to try and do better. You need to try to do better. No, you need to do better. I'm sorry for how it came off. No, I'm sorry that I said those words. I'm sorry that I did this or didn't do this. It's easy as that. So I think that hopefully this will be a growing and learning lesson for all of us about being responsible for ourselves and what we say and what we do or what we don't do. I really just wanted to talk about it really quickly. I don't really have any that many, like, a huge platform or anything on YouTube, but I don't also want to talk about it as offending me or hurting me, but I do think it's important that white people call out these things when they see them, and I see that happening. So yeah. Today is Monday. It is the start of the Reading Rush Readathon, which is the readathon that happens all week, put on by the Reading Rush, and there are 7 prompts, 7 books you're supposed to read in 6 days. So that's quite a challenge, but I'm hoping that I will get through them. Hopefully I picked good books to read during this. But yeah, it's only my second readathon ever, and it's my first Reading Rush readathon, so I'm really excited. It is a little bit later in the morning than I wanted to start, but I had kind of a crappy night last night and had a hard time sleeping and was just in pain, so I woke up a little bit later than I want. But I'm going to make some breakfast right now, and then I'm going to start reading. Usually I'll watch something while I eat, but this time I'm going to read. So it is a lot later than I wanted to start after breakfast. I kept getting distracted by things. So now I'm in my bed. I'm going to read for a while, try to calm down this anxiety that I'm having, and yeah, hopefully I'll feel better after I read a little bit. So the first challenge in this readathon is read a book with the cover that's the same color as your birthstone, and mine is August. I'm a peridot, and that is green. So I picked Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This will be the third book I read of his, and I really liked the other two I read. They were just a lot of fun to get through, and I read them quite quickly. So I'm hoping this will be a good start to the readathon to keep my momentum up. I have my little tray here with all my goodies. This is my new birthday mug that I got myself. The shop around the corner. If you know what that's from, then we'll probably be best friends. So anyways, yeah, I'm going to pick up this. I'm going to read for a little bit. I really like using this app called Forest on my phone, and you can set a timer, and it's kind of to reduce procrastination, and if you don't leave from it, you get to plant trees in your forest. So I'm probably going to do this for, let's see what time it is. Yeah, maybe I'll do 45 minutes. And this is just a really good way, hold on, it's not letting me move. This is just a really good way to keep off your phone, keep from getting distracted, and just really focus on reading. So that's what I'm going to do. So I have my baby, my little cuddle bug. The fireplace is going, book is in my hand, music's playing, got my San Pellegrino, which is my favorite flavor ever, and I'm ready to go. I only have read about 50 pages, which is way less than I wanted to for the first day, but I'll get to it. I'll crack it up and get to it. But I am super intrigued by the story. I was under the impression just by the summary that it was going to be sort of like a stereotypical haunting story, ghost story in a house. And from at this point where I am, it doesn't seem like that's what it's going to be, which is something that I should have given more credit to the author, because he did this with the other two books I read too, where the summary of what the book is just sounds so simple, like you've seen it so many times, but he always twists it, and so it's interesting. And keeps you on your toes, and so that's what's happening right now. I really like the structure that he is writing in. So it basically starts with the actual memoir that the father wrote. So you're reading it. You're reading it as sort of like a memoir, and it starts at them moving into the house when she was a child, and kind of goes along with what's going to happen. And at the same time, it's being contrasted with her story as an adult, where she has no real memories of her past and being at that house, although she does suffer from like these really scary nightmares that she's had since she lived there. And she meets with her mother, in which it doesn't seem like they have the greatest relationship. Her mother is very distant and wants to keep things away from her, and doesn't want to talk about the house or her father or the memoir or any of that. But she has a lot of confusion as to why this happened to begin with. Why did they move there? Why did they leave? Why did he write that story if it wasn't true? So far I'm really loving it, and I feel like this book is going to surprise me. I have a feeling that it might not just be like a supernatural story, but more of a psychological thriller, which I would really enjoy. And I don't mind if there's some ghosts in that. But yeah, so far I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to try to read a little bit more before I go exercise and cook dinner eventually. It is Monday evening. I am about halfway through Home Before Dark. I'm really enjoying it. There are some really creepy aspects of this now that our main character has arrived at the house. There's this scene of like someone staring at you, and oh my god, that creeps me out, especially in the dark. I just imagine Halloween, she looks out the window and she sees him just standing there staring at you. It's so creepy. So it's pretty interesting because there's a lot of development for our main character, which I'm really enjoying. She kind of grew up in this sort of weird fame because her father's memoir became so popular, like nationwide, and so she couldn't hang out with certain people, like certain kids weren't allowed to hang out with her. She was kind of always like looked at as this weird person, or this victim even, and so her whole life she's kind of been isolated, and she has no memories of being at this place. The only memory she has is just the figments that her father wrote. And so yeah, I'm hoping that I will be able to finish the rest of the book. I have quite a lot left, but I'm reading pretty quickly and I don't have any other plans for the rest of the evening, except being tired. So hopefully I can work through that. I have my tea, my water, and my vanilla wafers. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the life. I'm like so tired now, my body is, that my mind isn't so anxious, which is good. So I feel like given my meds and this book and just being really exhausted, I'll have a really good night's sleep, which would be good because I didn't last night. And then hopefully that means I can get through more reading, because today I kept getting so tired and sleepy. So yeah, good morning. It is Tuesday. I am going to try to work really hard today and get a lot of things done. So I am trying to finish Home Before Dark before breakfast, and then I'll start my new book later in the afternoon. So that's the hope. I was able to read more last night, but I didn't read as much as I wanted. I kept falling asleep while reading. So I'm on 265. I don't know how many pages there are, like 384, 385. So just about a little over 100 pages left. Not much. I think I can do it. Okay, it's Tuesday afternoon 1. I finished Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, and wow, I was pleasantly surprised. I don't know why I ever dealt with the author, because he has a really great way of twisting your expectations on what is going on, but in a way that is true to the characters, to human nature, to the story. It doesn't feel like the twists are coming out of nowhere just to surprise you. It actually, you can think back on what you've read and put the pieces together, and it makes sense to the characters. So I really enjoyed it. I really liked the ending. Sure, I do think a little bit of it was missed at the end. I didn't have as big of a shock as maybe I could have, but I was so surprised about the way it turned out. And like I said, those twisting of expectations just it was so good. So I did enjoy it a lot. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. And now I'm going to be moving on to my next book. So this is my next choice. It is for the prompt, read a book with the title starting with the word "the." I explained that really poorly, but you get the picture. So I'm reading The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This will be my second book from Lucy Foley. I read The Guest List a little while ago and loved it, so I thought this would be a good, hopefully another, see these birds, hopefully another book I can just kind of get hooked into really quickly and get through it really quickly. So yeah, that's the plan. So I did finish The Hunting Party yesterday, and I was really disappointed with it, honestly. It's structured the same as The Guest List, but I think The Guest List she did a better job at balancing the mystery aspect of it with the character development and the storylines. In the hunting party, it's just a lot. There, you're switching between all of these perspectives, which is what keeps it interesting and keeps you trying to guess what's going to happen. But I don't think there's enough time spent on the body, on the mystery aspect of it in the beginning. So it felt more like I was just reading a book about, secrets within friendships and betrayals and things like that. And I think maybe it was marketed differently, or at least I took the marketing very differently for both the guest list and the hunting party. Both times I really did expect like a murder mystery and trying to figure out who did it, and that's not really what happens in either of them. None of them are really like detectives. It's just kind of going with the storylines, and you end up having it solved through those storylines, but no one is actually actively trying to solve what happened. Moving on to Red Dragon. Hi, Benny. Hi. This book, I mean, I'm not even halfway yet, which is unfortunate because it's Thursday evening, basically Friday morning. But it's so good. Yeah, it's just phenomenal. It's very creepy being in the perspective of one of the characters in this book, in the perspective of the Red Dragon, I believe. I read John Fowles the Collector, and so and You is another one, where you're in the perspective of someone awful, basically, and I I really enjoy that in the daytime. like because it's interesting kind of from a psychological standpoint, and if you're interested in understanding that kind of stuff, that perspective is interesting to have, but in the evening, that's not kind of what I want to be reading. But I am really enjoying it so far. I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about it in terms of which portrayal I like more. He's not as socially challenged as he is in the show, in this book, and he has more he has sort of like a normal relationship with someone outside of his forensic investigation. So that's pretty different than the show, and it's just fun to kind of read the story. It's just kind of fun to read the story and have all of these perspectives in your head from other adaptations and putting them in with the original character, the original portrayal from Thomas Harris's books. So it is Thursday afternoon. I didn't vlog at all today, but I spent most of the day sleeping, not feeling good, but I am still on Red Dragon. I am about like almost halfway through it. I'm almost halfway through the book. I'm really loving it. It's very creepy. I really like I said before, picturing Hugh Dancy and Mads Mikkelsen as these characters, and even like Lawrence Fishburne as Crawford. And I like that we get the perspective of the Red Dragon as well. It makes it very creepy, and although Lecter isn't like featured so far that much, his presence is always there, kind of lingering behind Will, so it adds that extra layer of danger, which has been just enthralling. And I think this book is so well written, honestly. Like it's visual, and it provides so much depth to the characters, especially Will, that I feel like I'm there with them. So I'm still really enjoying it, and I hope that I will be able to finish almost all of it today. I don't think I will actually finish all of it today though. So it's unfortunate. I'm kind of falling behind. It's Thursday afternoon and I'm still on my third book. I have like one bigger book left, which is A Good Marriage, but the other three that I have are shorter. One is like super short. I think it's more of like a graphic novel type. And then the other two are children's books. I'm hoping that I'd be able to go through them pretty quickly. So it's okay. I'm going to try to get through as much of Red Dragon today as possible, and then I can move on to my next one, which will be like the bigger book, or the last big book basically I have to read. Hi, so it is Friday afternoon, and I haven't read one single page today. I've just been really working hard on some stuff that I needed to get done, and finally had the motivation to do it. So yeah. That's very unfortunate though, because I'm still on Red Dragon. Show you pretty much halfway through now. I still have 3 more books to read before, I guess, by Sunday, or like on Sunday. So I'm still really enjoying it. We're kind of getting to the climax, I think, pretty soon, because it feels like it's building up to that. So I still really like the portrayal that Hugh Dancy does in the show better than this one, even though I still enjoy Will in this book a lot. I just think the added element of, like, the added layer of him having, like, being on the spectrum and having social issues. So in the book, he has this girlfriend who has a son, and that adds like more danger to it, that there's someone out there that he really cares about, and he's going to have to protect them from both Hannibal and the Tooth Fairy / Red Dragon. So it is Saturday afternoon. I just got out of the bath and I just finished Red Dragon. It took me longer to read this for some reason than other books, and I was really hooked on the story as well. So I'm kind of surprised about how long it took me. Honestly, I'm so happy that I watched the show, and I was seeing Hugh Dancy's portrayal of Will Graham while I read this, even though the show portrays him very differently than in the book. Like, in the book, he's more, he's not as tortured by his extreme empathy and sort of the psychological games that Hannibal played on him. He's a little bit, but not like in the show. It doesn't torture him that much, and he's more like sassy, I would say. Like, there are things that he says in this that the Will Graham on the Hannibal Lecter show would not say. So I enjoyed it more because of that. And if we didn't change to the perspective of the Red Dragon, we get perspectives of him currently, and then we get background on him, you know, what his childhood was like. And it kind of, I think, was a showcase of how we always have this argument or study on nature versus nurture, and does someone become like a psychopath or a sociopath because of nature or because of nurture? And I think this was just kind of a showcase of how your upbringing and how the people in your life treat you can create something that we would deem a monster. And I'm always really fascinated by psychology and things like that. So even though it was really creepy being in the perspective of the killer, it also like changed the pacing of the story, because this reads very much like a procedural. There's a lot of like the crime stuff, like going and talking to the family and looking at forensics and stuff, and I'm really appreciative of Thomas Harris and his research, because there are a ton of like terminology, like forensic terminology, that is in here, and you just it creates the world and makes it real, but at the same time, a procedural is so much better visually. Like it's not as fun reading it because it's more of like there's just so much time wasted, I think, on it. So I still really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to read the other ones. And next book, I'm kind of behind on the schedule I was trying to keep with reading books because, like I said, I spent a lot of time reading this one, Red Dragon. So yeah, I'm a little behind, but I'm hoping that I can get through a good chunk of this because they still have 3 books to read. So yeah. But the next one I'm picking up is A Good Marriage by Kimberly McGrath. Hi, it is Monday afternoon and the reading rush is over. Officially last night, I was able to read 6 out of the 7 books I picked, and all in all I read a page total of 1,988. I'm just gonna round it up to 2,000 pages in 7 days. That is phenomenal in my opinion. Even though I didn't get to finish my last book, which was Peter Pan, I'm pretty proud of myself for finishing all that I did. So I'm just gonna go over quickly what I read totally, just, you know, kind of as a list of what I read, and then I'll talk a little bit about the last 3 books I was fortunate enough to be able to read before I signed off, but didn't vlog because I was just zoned in on the reading aspect of it. So I read Red Dragon by Tom Harris, loved it. We'll be buying the next books. I read The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley, was pretty disappointed. I read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, also enjoyed it. And for the last 3 books I was able to read before signing off, before the readathon ended, was The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami. Didn't like it. I love the art design of it. Pretty. But the story is just weird. It was random. I didn't really feel anything. I didn't know what I was supposed to have got out of reading it. At the end it was like super depressing for some reason. Yeah, I just didn't like it, unfortunately. That's all I'm gonna say about that. But a book I did like was A Good Marriage by Kimberly McGrath. I loved this. I flew through it. I basically read it in one sitting. There were things that happened, some of the twists that happened that I suspected were going to happen, but I was still surprised when they happened, because it was just so natural. Like, you could go back into the beginning and probably pinpoint some of these things, and then there were also some twists that I did not expect, and I love the main character. I loved her drive to find the truth, and there's a little bit of a psychological aspect of it as well, and there's just so many great twists of things that happened, not just plot wise but also character wise, that made it just so juicy. So if you're looking for a good mystery slash thriller, I definitely would pick this one up. It was really good. I'm gonna keep it and read it again sometime. The last book I didn't actually have on my readathon TBR, but it's been on my TBR for a while, and I didn't pick it because I didn't have it, but then I got it last minute. I was like, okay, I'm gonna read it, and that was Blended by Sharon and Draper. This book is so good, guys. This book is so good. I think everyone should read this book, not just young children, not just middle graders, but adults too. There's so much in here that is just so important and impactful. And the last book I was able to read wasn't on my readathon TBR, but it's been on my regular TBR for a while, and I didn't pick it because I didn't have it, but then I got it, so I was like, I gotta read it, and that was Blended by Sharon M. Draper. I love this book. I think everyone needs to read this book, not just young children, not just middle graders, but adults too. this book is so important and it's so impactful, and I am so glad I read it and I have it, because I definitely think this will be a key element of my educational career, because I definitely want to teach this book. Also has in the back some like questions that they usually have for at least contemporary adult fiction for like book clubs and stuff. So I really like that it has that as well. But this book is about a young girl who she's about in 6th grade, I believe. She has a white mother and a black father. Her parents divorced. Her father moved to California, then moved back. They live in Ohio, and she is a piano genius. She's grown up playing piano. Her mother is sort of like a working class woman, and her father is very well off. And she has to kind of juggle going back and forth between them. They share custody of her, and yeah, it's just like a growing up story of dealing with so many different things in your life that in children books before, like when I was young, I probably didn't have. This book does with so much. It deals with race identity, her having a white mother and a black father. What does she register as? How does she figure out who she is, what her identity is, what box to pick? And there is a scene in this book where they talk about that, and it made me tear up a little. It deals with, you know, having parents that are divorced and them growing and moving on with different people in their lives, and having to jump back between the two of them, you know, having 2 houses, 2 beds. She has 2 backpacks. I mean, that just broke my heart into pieces. And it also deals with racism and how we respond to it, how we see it, how we discuss it, not just in the wider sense in the communities and the activism that is happening, but also with teachers, with peers, with friends. How does someone deal with racism from, you know, a peer, basically, when you're a child? How do you handle that? How does that affect you? Because it definitely affects them psychologically and emotionally for the rest of their life. That's something I think we're just now getting to have a discussion on, of how much, like, physically, mentally is someone impacted for their life as a chronic disorder because of racism that they experienced at any age, but especially when they're young. Not only is it hard to just be a child coming into your teenage years and dealing with all of that, but having to also struggle with racism and in every aspect of your life, at school, at home. How does it all impact you? It's all in this book. It is amazing how much she has put in here, that a young person needs. You know, they need to have views of themselves in media and in books and literature, what they read. And I also loved the aspect of the teacher. How do we respond to racism when you, as a student, you know, how does a teacher respond to it so they're not having the person that it's pointed at feel less than or hurt, while also trying to educate, as, you know, a non-black person to someone who's being racist to another student in your life. I don't know if I'm explaining the aspect I really loved as I am beginning my educational career is how, as a teacher, do you respond to racism? How do you respond to it firsthand when a fellow student is pointing racism to another, or just generally speaking in racist aspects? How do we correct it? How do we educate? How do we make sure the person it's pointed at feels safe and strong? You know, do we call it out in front of everyone? Do we take that person, you know, have a one-on-one with them? Like, how do we educate and correct behavior and racist tendencies, while also uplifting students, you know, who are experiencing it. So I, from that point, also really enjoyed this. I wish there were more stories like this, especially in the educational sense, that I could read, whether fiction or nonfiction. So I'm going to do a lot of research, because I think that that's super important, that we have these discussions and we can learn from the actual people who experience it. So yeah, I believe in own voices. I believe in being own voice reviewers when it comes to these books that are written by BIPOC people. But I also think it's important that I uplift these authors. I share them and the stories that they're telling, and yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I also absolutely loved it, 5 stars on all fronts. And again, I think it's so amazing that you could get so much from children books. I talk to people all the time as adults who are like, why do you read children books? Like, because they're so good. There's so much like education and morals, and we can always learn from ourselves and learn from our younger selves, you know. And yeah, so I'm just gonna done. So yeah, and I think this is a really great book to pick up for everyone, adults included. So that is that. Like I said, I read 2,000 pages. I read 6 books. I'm very proud of myself. I'm not really good at marketing myself, but all of the people, all of the marketing people tell you to remind your viewers to subscribe. So that's what I'm doing. Please subscribe if you like. I'd really appreciate it. And reach out and talk about books with me. That's, you know, a major reason why I started this to begin with, is to have people to talk about books with. So yeah, that's that. Comment on what books you read on your readathon if you participated, or if you have any, you know, comments on the books that I read, want to share ideas or discussions on that, that'd be great also. But anyways, I hope you guys stay cozy and have a great rest of your day. Bye.